The Appalachian State Mountaineers are poised for great success yet again in 2024. Sean Clark is back to be the head coach, and Joey Aguilar coming back to be the quarterback. He's become a fan favorite here in Boone, and App State once again is poised to sit at, if not, or I should say near, if not at the top of the Sun Belt Conference. But can the App State Mountaineers push for a college football playoff spot in 2024? Well, you're about to find out what I think here in this video. What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. Welcome to my channel. Welcome to prediction season. This is video number 72 out of 134. Yes, I'm predicting each and every one of the 134 college football teams in the FBS ranks this summer. It means I'm doing your favorite team, and it means you got to hit the subscribe button and ring the bell. I know this is a group of 5 team, but we are so close to being done with the Power 5 teams, and if you're one of the few, or I should say Power 4, if you're one of the few Power 4 teams I haven't done yet, again, you got to hit the subscribe button. You got to ring the bell. I mean, let's face it. You want to hear what I have to say about every team in the nation, right? Support the channel in any way you can. Watch my other videos. Like, comment, share, and interact with the channel any way you can, because it all helps support what I do here on YouTube. We're going to take a deep dive into the App State Mountaineers by talking first about their offense, second about their defense, and then we'll dive on into the football schedule for App State, and we'll give it a game-by-game preview and prediction. But a couple more things before we do start. Right over here will be the stats the team put up either offensively or defensively last season. And, of course, for your viewing pleasure, right below the team's logo, I've put the team's coaching staff, and I will waste no more time. Let's dive on in to talking about the App State Mountaineers. We got to start out with the offense, of course, and starting out with the offense, you start out with the most important position on the field. That is the quarterback position. I believe I said it in my intro, and if I didn't, I apologize. But Joey Aguilar is coming back to this team in Boone for 2024. 3,757 yards, 33 touchdowns, 10 interceptions on 63% completion percentage last season. If you really had any gripes with Joey Aguilar from last year, it was that, okay, maybe you can cut back on the interception number. You can increase that completion percentage. Absolutely. Those are all things you probably want to see out of him here in 2024. But overall, there isn't really much to complain about with the play of Joey Aguilar. He's a good decision maker. He is a huge deep ball threat. He's got the arm, and look, Joey Aguilar at times can even run the football. He's shown us the ability with the legs a little bit as well. 249 yards and 3 touchdowns for him last season on 81 tries, and yes, sack yardage is included in there as well. But overall, you return Joey Aguilar back, the leader of this offense from last season. And coming into this year in 2024, well, while you do lose a couple pieces that we'll talk about here in a minute, Joey Aguilar still has a ton of talent to help this App State team see tremendous success in 2024. David Hernandez will be his primary backup because Ryan Berger has entered the transfer portal. He is transferred over to Liberty. Let's talk about this running back room, and you lose a staple in Boone over the past couple of seasons. It is Nate Noel. He is off to try to replace, or not replace, I should say, I don't like using that terminology, try to fill the shoes of Cody Schrader with Marcus Carroll, a Georgia State running back transfer over at Missouri. But he had 834 yards and 5 touchdowns last season. You go back to 2021, he had a 1,000-yard season. So look, this is a very, very capable running back, a very, very good running back. In fact, a great running back here in Boone with the App State Mountaineers. He is off now to play in the ranks of the SEC. Well-deserved for Nate Noel. And he should have a pretty good season in Columbia. But he is not playing in Boone. Who is, though? Well, Kanye Roberts is back, 696 yards, and led the team with 7 touchdowns last season. Mikael Haywood and Anderson Castle are also coming back. Those in order, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th leading rushers of this team last season. Kanye Roberts will be that lead back, but Haywood and Castle will see some good carries as well in 2024. Deshaun Davis and Milan Tucker are both gone out of this wide receiver room. They have both left through the transfer portal. Davis had 381 yards and 3 touchdowns last year. Tucker, 305 yards and 1 touchdown. Some pretty solid pieces in this wide receiver room. Both of them are gone. However, most of your leaders in this wide receiver room are coming back. And guess what? You're only adding a ton more pieces through the transfer portal. We'll talk about them when we get there. We got to talk about these returners first. Caden Robinson is back, a primary candidate to get 1,000 yards receiving here in 2024. I definitely think it can happen for him. He was 95 yards off last year. So for quick math, 905 yards on 67 catches and led the team with 10 receiving touchdowns last season. Christian Horn is back, another very talented piece here. He had 566 yards and 6 touchdowns receiving last year. Mekhi Jackson, Dalton Stroman, and Michael Hetzel, they all return to this wide receiver room. And look, you just add a ton more pieces here. Blake Hoban is a JUCO community college transfer, I do believe. Xavier Short and William Fowles both come in from Power 4 programs. Xavier Short comes over from South Carolina, and William Fowles comes over from Louisville. This is going to be a really good wide receiver room, and Joey Aguilar has a ton of talent to work with in the pass catching room. You can even transition that into talking about the tight end room, because even though Miller Gibbs is gone, he's run out of eligibility. He has graduated. You do get Eli Wilson coming back, who had 350 yards on 34 catches and 5 touchdowns out of the tight end room last season, and David Larkins is back as well. He was this close to 100 yards last year, did have 3 receiving touchdowns for the team as well. So you factor in the tight end room. Look, you got a very good pass catching room here in Boone for the App State Mountaineers. Offensive line, though, this is where a lot of the talent is leaving. A lot of guys that were on the 2 deep for App State in the offensive line are gone from last season. That includes Bucky Williams. He's going to be playing on Sundays. An NFL caliber offensive lineman will obviously be going there as such. Damian Daly, Isaiah Helms, Bucky Williams, and Jaden Lindsay, all those pieces have left through the transfer portal. They all saw some pretty significant playing time on the offensive line for App State last year, or again, at the very least, they were on the 2 deep for the Mountaineers last season. So who comes back? Well, Jack Murphy is back. Griffin Scroggs is back. Thornton Gentry and Jaden Ramsey, all of those guys will be back on the offensive line. But 2 guys that probably are going to end up getting starting roles on this offensive line coming in through the portal are Michael Marotta and Thomas Schrader. They both transition in from their respective programs. Marotta is over from Mississippi Valley State. And Schrader's over from Florida State. You are getting some other transfers coming in here as well. Luke Burgess is over from Louisville. Jack Holyfield is over from Virginia Tech. And you're getting a couple other transfers coming in here as well. Oh, my apologies. I do want to backtrack on one thing. Those names that I mentioned there, Daly, Helms, Williams, Lindsay, not through the transfer portal. I misspoke. They have graduated. So run out of eligibility. I want to fix that before I move on. But when you talk about this App State offense here in 2024, look, it's going to be really, really good. 445 yards per game last season. You're probably going to see similar numbers here in 2024. The only thing that might take a dip is that run game, just because you lose Nate Noel. But again, you have a lot of solid pieces in this running back room. Joey Aguilar is going to have phenomenal chemistry with this wide receiver room, especially if those transfers can fit in and kind of fill the shoes of Davis and Tucker and even more. Well, App State, again, going to look to have a very, very good offense in the Sun Belt in 2024. Again, we'll see how the piece on the offensive line fit in. They did allow 21 sacks last year. You lose a lot of pieces, so that's another question mark I have for them. But overall, you can't complain with the Joey Aguilar-led offense in Boone. I don't know why that was so hard for me to say. This is going to be one of the better offenses the Sun Belt has to offer. Now, defensively for the App State Mountaineers, you lose a lot of talent off of defense that was really pretty solid from a season ago. Yeah, maybe allowed a little too many points per game. Yeah, the rush defense was overall not really super fantastic, but there was a lot of solid talent on this defense last year. Secondary overall was pretty solid, but defensively, there is some good talent leaving the defensive side. You got to start out with the defensive line, of course, as we usually do. And well, Donovan Spellman, he has entered his name into the transfer portal, and he'll be playing for a new team here. Edge rusher type player. You can slot him in at linebacker as well. 10 tackles for 1 sack last season. You also are losing DeAndre Dingle Prince, who was a very impactful defensive lineman at the defensive end position last year. He had 25 tackles a season ago. You also do lose Kevon Hagler, who is going to be leaving this defense with 11 tackles and half a sack from last season. So again, no really big ticket guys leaving, but all guys that had a solid impact on the defensive line for App State last season. So who comes back? Well, Santana Hopper is going to be coming back. Leading tackler among defensive linemen last year, had 34 tackles and 3.5 sacks. He was not the sack leader among defensive linemen, though. That went to Michael Fletcher, who had 4.5 sacks. Sean Collins had 2.5 sacks, so you get a ton of sack production coming back there. Kevin Abrams-Verwain is also back. Marquez Clark, Montez Kelly. This is a very deep defensive line room here for App State that has a lot of good production coming back, especially with Hopper, Collins, and Fletcher, those first three names that I did mention. App State's got a lot of good talent coming back on the defensive line. Linebacker room, though, well, you do lose a guy that hit triple-digit tackles last season. That was Andrew Parker Jr., had 109 tackles. You lose 2 sacks of production from him and 2 passes defended. So he will be gone off of this team as, again, he will be playing on Sundays. And Trevor Moffitt has entered his name into the transfer portal. He himself, pretty solid season last year when he did play. Again, didn't play a whole ton, only 7 tackles, so more of a depth piece, but a loss to the transfer portal nonetheless. Who comes back in this linebacker room? Well, Caden Sullivan, Nate Johnson, Daryl Farrar, Thomas Davis, Broderick Gooch, Kyle Arnold, and so many more names come back in this linebacker room. Caden Sullivan, I believe, was the... Oh, no, he was not. I misread my stat sheet here. Caden Sullivan there was another guy that broke 100 tackles, but we'll talk about him here in a little bit when we talk about the defensive back room. Sullivan had 65 tackles last season. Johnson had 42 tackles last year. Farrar had 40. Oh, and by the way, Nate Johnson, 7.5 sacks last year. That led the Mountaineer defense. He'll be coming back this year. And again, you got a lot of good talent in this defensive front seven. Defensive back room, Tyrek Funderburk. One of the more fun names to say, pun absolutely intended, in college football. Well, you'll get to say his name now in the NFL. He is off to play in the league out of the cornerback position. 8 passes defended, tied for the team lead with 4 interceptions last season. You're losing a very solid piece there that was also a top 10 tackler for the team last year. You also are losing another name out of this cornerback room in Omari Filia. Now, again, not a whole ton of playing time, only 4 tackles, 1 interception last season, but nonetheless, a loss through the transfer portal. Here's the other guy that broke 100 tackles last year, 104 of them to be exact, with a sack and a half, 4 pass defended, and 1 pick. It was Nick Ross. Him, along with E.J. Jackson, who had 48 tackles for 7 passes defended, both of them top 5 tacklers, have run out of eligibility. They have since graduated. So what does your defensive back room look like in 2024? Well, Ethan Johnson is going to be coming back, led the team with 11 passes defended last season out of the cornerback position, and Trenton Allen-Yo will be back here as well, and I probably definitely butchered that name, but he had 8 tackles, did have a pick last season as well. He'll see a much bigger role in 2024, but you do get a couple guys in from the transfer portal here. Seth Robertson and Jason Chambers are coming in to give a boost to this defensive back room. Chambers is coming over, I believe, from North Carolina Central, while Seth Robertson is over from Georgia Southern. And then in the safety room, Jordan Favors, Ronald Clark, and Jalik Thomas. They are all coming back. You want to take a look at a guy like Jordan Favors, 35 tackles, 7 passes defended. He was tied there with Funderburk for the team lead with interceptions with 4 of them. You do get Miles Farmer, a former Nebraska Cornhusker and most recently Syracuse Orange player who is coming over to play safety, and Avarian Cole, who is transferring into this program as well. And kickers are people too. No notable loss in the special teams room. So Mitchell Lake is back to do the punting duties, and Michael Hughes back to be the place kicker for the Mountaineers. My apologies, in 2024. And overall, this defense, well, I like a lot of the talent on it. Your defensive front seven's absolutely loaded. You got a ton of players that were huge contributors to the team last year coming back. Your defensive back room, yes, it's where they lost some more of their higher end talent. Just in terms of who contributed off the team last year. But I think they did really well in the transfer portal, and I think App State's going to be rearing and ready to go. Scott Sloan's defense will be one of the better ones in the Sun Belt Conference again here in 2024. And now we take a look at their schedule. Any game at home will be underlined, while any game on the road is in italics or that slanted text. Any game you see in green is a game that I think App State's going to be able to win. Any game in yellow is going to be a close, competitive game. But I still think App State's going to be able to win, and any game in red, of course, is a loss. They should start out with the win against East Tennessee State. That should just be a pretty easy win there for App State to kick things off. And then, well, I'd see you starting out the season 1-1 pretty much any way you slice it. I think App State's going to go on the road and lose to the Clemson Tigers. Look, I know Clemson's got a lot of offensive problems here, and App State's got a very dynamic offense. If they can get this Clemson defense that's going to be really good this year on their heels, they might have a shot to be able to pull this thing out, and we know App State loves pulling off these big upsets. Do I have to remind everyone what happened in 2007? But Clemson, I see Cade Klubnik and Garrett Riley taking a year 2 jump with that offensive coordinator quarterback dynamic. And I think Clemson's going to be one of the ACC's better teams here in 2024. Clemson is a team that you can't overlook. I know they didn't really do much in the transfer portal, but there's still a lot of good talent on it. They'll be one of the better teams in the country this season. And I don't think App State is going to go on the road in Death Valley and win that game. So that is a win for the Clemson Tigers as App State starts out 1-1. You take a move on here and you take a look at their next game. It's the East Carolina Pirates. And East Carolina, well, they definitely are an interesting team here. They were not a very good team last season, which many people might have expected just because they did lose a ton of talent. But a lot of offensive transfers come in, a lot of defensive transfers come in, and East Carolina should be a better team here in 2024. But I think, the dynamic ability here of the Appalachian State Mountaineers will be able to overpower this East Carolina defense, and I think App State going to be able to beat the Pirates there in week 3 to move to 2-1. A game that I could see East Carolina winning, absolutely, but I think App State, especially offensively, will be way too talented, and while the defensive transfer portal pieces try to still figure out their role, App State beats the Pirates. South Alabama was an interesting team last year, right? Everyone expected them to be a really, really good team coming off of a very successful 2022, and they just overall weren't that great last year. Carter Bradley's off to the NFL, and a lot of other pieces leave to the NFL, and they're off through the transfer portal there as well. I don't believe Major Applewhite is that coach there anymore, although I could be wrong. I'll fact check that. My apologies, I had things backwards. Kane Womack was the head coach there. He's no longer the head coach, so now Major Applewhite is taking over that program. That's where I got mixed up. Look, all things considered, South Alabama is still going to be a very talented team this season, but this game is in Boone. It's on a weekday, a Thursday to be exact, and I don't think App State is going to lose this game here to South Alabama. They were a very talented team last year. That definitely will not be as talented this year. That's a win for Appalachian State. Then you get to come back home and play the Liberty Flames. They're going to be one of the most talented teams in Group of 5 this year and absolutely can compete for a spot in the college football playoff. And Liberty's got a very manageable schedule, but this is by far one of, if not the toughest game Liberty has on their schedule. It's in Boone. It's against a high-powered, high-octane offense that I think Liberty is going to have a tough time keeping up with defensively. Now, App State may have a tough time keeping up with that Liberty rush game because Quentin Cooley is back, Kadon Salter is back, and a lot of good talent comes back for that Liberty Flames team. However, when you take a step forward here, I just think App State, with the Boone crowd behind them, are going to be able to get that win. Now you go ahead and you talk about a team in the Marshall Thundering Herd that, look, I think are going to be a pretty good team this year. Cole Pennington comes back at quarterback, but pretty much everything else on this offense is going to be brand new. A new wide receiver core, a new running back in Jordan Houston, some pieces come in through the transfer portal defensively. I should take that back. A lot's going to change offensively. Defense has a lot of good returning talent, and Marshall is just a tough team year in and year out. I think this is the year where App State goes on the road and loses this game. I like this Marshall team a lot. If the offensive pieces can click, well, they're going to be able to give this App State defense a pretty darn good fight, and I think they do. App State loses that game to the Marshall Thundering Herd. Got to go on the road and play the Louisiana Raging Cajuns next, to which I don't think that's going to be an easy game there either. Louisiana, I still think, has some pretty solid pieces on it. And look, overall, I think it's going to be a pretty competitive team. Chandler Fields comes back, but not a lot of transfers come in, and I don't think they have enough talent to beat App State. That's a win for me for the Mountaineers there on the road, even though I think the Raging Cajuns will be no pushover. Your first bye week of the year finally comes here, and you get 2 games at home against 2 teams that I don't see being that great in the Sun Belt Conference this year. Georgia State lost a ton of pieces. They also lost their head coach. He's taken an assistant job over with South Carolina, and I overall just don't see the Panthers being that good. Usually they're pretty feisty and competitive, but a lot of change in that program. I think it's going to take some time to recover. So that's a win for App State here, and a win against Old Dominion. Much like the seasons prior for Old Dominion, a lot of pieces leave through the transfer portal. I think it's going to leave them reeling here, and App State will beat Old Dominion there at home. So 2 pretty easy wins before you close out with an absolutely gnarly 3-game stretch, and it starts out with the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. Now, yes, they did lose Grayson McCall. There's still going to be a lot of good talent here on this Coastal Carolina team. Braden Bennett is back at running back. They got a lot of really good wide receivers coming back there defensively. There are a lot of solid pieces. But overall, losing Grayson McCall, I think that would have been the piece here that would have helped Coastal Carolina beat App State this season. Again, they got some really good offensive players there, some really good defensive players, but overall, with Grayson McCall gone, they do lose, again, some of their other more talented pieces. I think their top 2 leading wide receivers are also gone through the transfer portal. Yes, they still have a lot of solid talent there, but I think App State offensively with Joey Aguilar, defensively, they're going to be a lot better than Coastal Carolina this season, and that's a win for me for the App State Mountaineers. After your second bye week, you did come back home and play James Madison, and even though the Dukes lose Kurt Signetti, they're still going to be one of the more talented teams in the Sun Belt Conference this year. Bob Chesney comes in, and yes, that team got ravaged by the transfer portal. I think James Madison did a pretty good job in the transfer portal. They're still going to be one of the better Sun Belt teams this season, but I think App State, with Joey Aguilar, they're going to be able to attack this James Madison secondary. That just wasn't that great last season, and it does lose a lot of talent off of it. And that's where App State wins this game, but they lose the final game of the year to Georgia Southern. Clay Helton's group is going to be one of the most competitive teams in the Sun Belt Conference this season. I think they're going to be one of the better ones here as well. Yes, I know they're going to have a new quarterback here, but Dexter Williams comes in. A lot of their wide receiver pieces from last year come back. Jalen White, that phenomenal running back, is back. And I think this is going to be an offensive duel that I just see Georgia Southern winning. So 9-3 for me for the App State Mountaineers. 11-1 is absolutely achievable. I think you drop a couple games along the way, as the Sun Belt will be pretty competitive here in 2024. Let me know what you guys think about the Mountaineers in the comment section below. As always, remember to play hard but tailgate harder. When we come back tomorrow, we'll talk about the Cincinnati Bearcats. Goodbye.